Okay, in today's video, we're going to be looking at chaining comparison operators together. We're also going to look at logical operators like and, or, and not. So let's start off. So as I said before, we're going to be looking at chaining comparison operators and operators. God, I really can't spell. We will be looking at logical operators, and these ones are going to be, we're going to look at and, or, and not. So let's kind of break this down. So if you remember from before, or if you haven't watched this video before, make sure you go back and watch that video where we look at true or false booleans, comparison operators. But again, we'll do a quick review. So we have 1 is less than 2, true, right? Makes sense. We know that 2 is less than 3, right? Or if 2 is greater than 3, we get false. Great. Now, let's say we wanted to, combine all these. So instead of doing each of these in their own individual lines, we wanted to combine and say, well, is 1 less than 2? Is 2 less than 3? Is 2 greater than 3? Combine it all into 1. So we can use a comparison operator, or we can use one of the logical operators. We can use and. So for example, actually, no, let's break this down. Let's do this one more way. So let's say I have 1 is less than 2, or greater less than 2, right? And less than 3. I get true, right? Because 1 is less than 2 and 2 is less than 3. So it all makes sense. And if I were to change this to greater than, I would then get false because now, part of the chain has been broken. But another way we can do this is using and. So 1 is less than 2 and, see how it lights up green? So it's a built-in part of Python. And 2 is less than 3, we get true. And same thing for 1 is less than 2 and 2 is greater than 3, we get false, right? Because 2 is not greater than 3. So and means that both have to be true, otherwise it's false. So another way to look at it, let's say 1 is greater than 2 and 2 is greater than 3, you get false. So it doesn't work the other way around. Key thing to remember, it looks at the data itself. Sorry, I tried to catch a little fruit fly there I had to catch. Okay, so let's look at, that's and, which is great. Another way we can use it is we can actually use it with strings as well. So it's h equal to h, okay? And 2 equal to 2, you get true. We can also do this with strings a little further. So we go is h equal to h, and g equal to h, we should get false, right? Because h does equal h, but g does not equal h. Similar with numbers, was 1 equal 1 and 2 equal 2, true, right? Okay, let's clean this up here. So one other thing we can look at is using or. And so let's say I have 1 equals 1, or does 2 equal 2? Well, they're both true, so we get true. But what if one of those were false? So if 1 equals 1 or 2 equal 3, what would you expect? Well, we get true because one of those is true. And or only requires that one of those little sections is true. Make sense? Vice versa, if we were to look at strings, so if let's do h equal h, or does g equal h, we get true because h does equal h, even though g does not equal h. Awesome. And the other one, and the final one we're going to look at, is not. So before, if you were looking at comparison operators, you typically use the exclamation mark. So does 1 not equal 1? You're going to get false, right? Because 1 does equal 1. Another way you can do this is using not. So not 1 equals 1. You're going to get false, right? Because 1 does equal 1. Whereas if you did not 2 equals 1, you will get true. Make sense? And same thing if you were to do, let's say 400 is greater than 500. It's false. Of course, 400 is not greater than 500, but not 400 greater than 500. You get true.